Tricks to mix your music live. I guess that's going to be today's video. Are you ready for it? Let's go and do it right now. Hey and welcome, I'm at Location and thank you for checking out yet another video. Now if this is your first time here, don't hesitate to click subscribe and hit that notification bell. Whenever I upload a new video, you'll be kept in the loop and you won't miss out on anything. Stick around till the end of this video, there's much to tell and I will reveal a lot of stuff towards the end of this video, so stay tuned for that. Now, I have talked about a lot of topics, but I don't think that I've addressed the mixing and mastering aspect of it, because I always say I don't mix and master my records when I perform live. And that's not exactly true, because I do level and in a way mix the tracks so that they will sound well. Now, there is a difference between producing your music and mixing your music, and we're going to get into that today. There are a few advantages on mixing your tracks yourself. There's going to be an improved understanding of the sounds that you're using. You are developing a more cohesive set. You are actually refining your performance techniques. Mixing often exposes weaknesses in levels and in flow. Learning how to address those issues will actually give you a lot of benefit when you perform live, as your performance is going to be a lot more convincing. Mixing also involves crafting smooth transitions, and that's also going to help you when you want to transition from one song into the next one. Now you have to remember, mixing is a learning process. The enhanced understanding of your sounds is also very important. And when you have a convincing mix down, it creates overall performance confidence. Then there's clarity and polish. If you know your sounds and you know how to really clean them up, it's going to make you sound better when you perform live. You feel more confident, you know exactly what you can do, and there's a range within the sound that you have shaped. You know how far you can take it, and it will also translate to a bigger sound system. Now, all of a sudden, you know how much range you have, how much power you have, so how much of a punch that you can actually pack. And the enhanced understanding of your sound does a few things as well. The mixing process involves isolating and pinpointing your sounds apart from each other. It means you can actually really go deep in and focus on these sounds when you listen to them in solo, all by themselves, and make a cohesive mix out of them by balancing and combining those sounds together. And if it runs smoothly, there's no problem, but you will also have to go into identifying the mixing issues that might occur. Certain sounds just don't want to sit in the mix, and that is a thing, that is a trick. Now, there's also the EQ section where you can shape the sounds. There's pedals where you can add effects to the sound, and obviously there is like dynamics control, like compressors and stuff. I'm not too keen on using EQ and compression, but that's a different story. What I will show you though is how to level your sounds up so that they will work and you don't have to tamper with them, because the performance aspect is a very important one. When you're mixing and making it sound well, but you're not addressing the crowd and you're not having a visual conversation with them, it means you come across as if you're not interested. And if you look like you're not interested, the crowds are not going to really give you the light of day. So make sure that you can do a lot of stuff ahead of time. Focus on getting your sound well. Do that on speakers that you trust. Once you have the sound sitting in a ballpark thing, it doesn't really have to be 100%. Mind you, you get to a club, it will sound different. You get to a room, it will sound different. You get to a smaller stage, it's always going to sound different. So even if you got this one set, you perform at all these three examples that I just told you, sounds will differ. So make sure you got a ballpark, but you know, there are a few rules and I'm going to show you which ones. A well-mixed DAWless mixdown works better as a confident live DAWless performance. There are also pitfalls in sound creation, obviously. There, and I will have to warn you for them. Neglecting arrangement. A lot of people just get stuck in a loop, there you have it again, and then once they're gonna start arranging stuff, they completely go overboard and treat the whole music piece as a different part, and then you'll just lose your mojo and it's all over the place. So the magic that you had while sticking in the loop is now gone. There are also studio versus live differences, so don't go, like I said before, too overboard with what you hear in your studio. You have to really determine how your mix is going to sound once you get to the venue. So focus on core elements. Focus on a few things that you know are going to sound well, and also specify who are the chiefs, who are the Indians, who are the cowboys. You know, it needs to be what needs to be heard, what needs to be added as an extra. Rehearse how your sounds are sounding, trick around with what they do, and rehearse your transitions from one track into the next. That is going to help you make a stronger performance, but also make the mix sound better. Now, unfortunately, the less tracks you use, the harder it is to mix. The bigger your sound has to be in order to just work together. For me, it's easier to mix with 20 tracks than with 2 tracks. There are so many choices that you have to do when you're listening to 2 tracks and still have to fill up the spectrum, the frequency spectrum that is between the 20 hertz and the 20 kilohertz. That's difficult. Of course, there's performance pressure. We as human beings will really fool ourselves by interpreting stuff differently once we get nervous or something happens that we didn't calculate in. And that means that you have to really focus on where am I with my stuff, where's my head at, and just keep your cool. Don't worry about it. Stuff will go wrong in the end, but if you just keep your cool, stay where you are and keep focusing on getting your bearings, you'll be there, and it will be great, you know. Another thing is try to get to a result fast. Don't start to just like put it on the wall of the museum. It needs to be spaced out, blah, blah, blah. I try to mix as fast as I can. 9 out of 10 times the gut feeling that I have and the goosebumps give away that I'm on the right track. If not, I have to work a little bit harder, but also decisions in the arrangement stage make it easier to mix down later on, which in turn is going to make the whole performance more convincing, and it's going to just like sound like you know what you're doing. The controlled room acoustics of your studio will differ from the club, as I told you before. It can be very different. Try to get a ballpark on what it is. This is your sound in a studio. This could be the club with more highs. This could be the club with more lows. And if your mix is well balanced, you only have to tilt it that way. You don't have to stick stuff up here or stick stuff up there. Just make sure that you've got a well balanced mix that you can tilt and shape it. You know, I've had instances where I did the greatest sound check in the world, and for some reason the sound tech decided to smoke a spliff and go lie in the bus. So he was and she were gone. You didn't know where they were. And then by the time the room fills up, the acoustics change. So when the acoustics change, my sound now sounds different. So what I did during the sound check is now going to be a different interpretation of what it is. Sounds more direct. It was a little bit more dry and sounds were closer to me. So it was nerve-wracking not to have a sound tech that told me don't worry about it. So you'll find out the hard way, but once you know that lesson, it'll not happen to you again. So make sure you calculate for that. Make sure your sound is already capable of handling itself in different sonic situations. How I set this up today, I've got my trusty Minilog XD here, which I'm going to play live. A little bit of ambience that I'll use here or there. Now let's start with the kick drum. I've got the kick drum sitting on my desk and it's coming from track 1. I am going on this little EPM 8 desk. I am going to illuminate the peak light so that you see it blinking. This is my ballpark where I'm going. I've got a 303, moderately filtered as you can hear. So I'm not going to just go in and completely overdo it. I'm going to build it up. This is the beginning of the track, right? Now, I've got a few things that are very important in terms of trying to figure out what I'm doing when I'm playing live, because normally you can just set it, forget it, but when you're doing it live, something else applies. So what I will do is I will introduce some drums to use. This is the 303, obviously, there's no drums. So I've got the kick drum, then I've got a smaller head, very short. I've got my snare drum on a drum roll as well. This is a very important part, track number 4, right? Now, I've got an open head, which is coming a little bit off my right side or left side. In this case, it is the right side. I need to make sure. Right side, so this close head on track 2, I will balance it out to go a little bit on the left side, you can hear it. And I will make the release a little bit longer. So there's not just that small brushy kind of sound. Yes. Okay. Now, as a rule of thumb, I think it's about 3 decibels, 2 or 3 decibels dB in difference between the kick and the rest of my drums. Because the kick drum, throughout this example, this is the one you should always hear and feel, okay? So, snare drum, very important. I think I can lower it a little bit on track 3 here. Let's take out that loop first. So I'm going to lower it, so with the volume. So that I hear the kick more than I hear the snare drum. With the snare like this, there's a lot of low-end content on it, so if you turn it up, you're going to go past the point where you will clearly hear more of the snare and less of the kick. So it will go like like a seesaw almost, and that's not what you would want. Ideally, what you would like is the kicks to be everywhere, bam, 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 and then your snare just dividing it in half for this kind of beat, because this is kind of a powerful groove. Now, I'm building up my sound in the room. Can I perform with this? Yes. Is it boring? Very much so. So the crowd is not latching onto something. Crowd latches on to melodies more than they will do to drums. So that's why the 303 is always involved. But for sake of this example, I'll just space out what I'm doing. So I've got a bit of an atmospheric lady singing here, and this loops all the time. And she goes back and does it again, bam. So not the best looped sample in the world, because you hear it just cut off, but you see it's on half tempo. 5, 7 and 8, where this kick drum is going, bam, 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 bam. You can see it, you know, cool. All right, then that loop in the middle, let's talk about frequencies first, right? Let's take off that hypnotizing loop. So low end is here. Then that loop that I had, that percussion loop, is for the mid-range. The mid-range being, it's a bit on the higher side of the scope, I would say. Now, how do you determine where the frequencies are? Yeah, this unfortunately is a bit of a get muscle memory kind of thing. If you have a graphic equalizer, then it's easy to do, but when you're working DAWlessly, you have to constantly depend on your ears. So what I would suggest is play a track, place it on maybe your input on the mixer, and play a track that you know and love that's been produced by somebody else. And or if you have a track that you got mastered from a mastering engineer, play it and associate your own sounds with what you are hearing on the desk. And then if you're in a ballpark, you know, if you do that often enough, you at some point start to hear like, okay, I'm missing low end. Hey, I've got too much high end, or, you know, something like that. Now, you have to just take my word for it. This kick will work. And then I know that this loop, it is a bit on the loud side, but I need it because on a big sound system, this kick is really going to kick your butt, right? So I think I can increase the volume on that closed head a bit. That's very important, because if I take that out, the snare drum is the only thing that has a little bit of high frequency content, meaning high, the sizzly parts. If you don't know about frequencies or you're just starting out, high frequencies is the stuff that's, you know, that hurts your ears when it's too loud, the sharp stuff. And the sharp stuff is very important. A well-balanced mix is a cadence between the two, between the low end and the high end. So there needs to be some sort of a pulsating thing which makes you dance, you know, some sort of a cadence, some sort of a rhythm. So this is a blanket of that high-end frequency content, which is not the highest in the world, but it does the trick. So this is, I think, okay. Then going for the open head on 5, you'll hear, I think it's a bit far off, far to the right side, so I will go in and balance it a little bit to the middle, because on a big sound system, this left and right thing all of a sudden gets spaced out a lot. So people standing on the on my left side, the right side of the stage, then will only partially hear the high-end frequency content, which means they are now missing out on all the hard work that I've been doing trying to balance my mix out, right? I'm not EQing on the desk like this. I'm trying to just like get really great sounding sounds and align them. So going back out is like a kick drum, and I'm trying to work it in a logical fashion. So low end, low mids, mid-range, high mids, and then going up to the highs are the bands that I usually try to aim for. So if you're trying to build muscle memory, go for low end, mid-range, high end, right? So low end, mid-range, high end. That should be your thing. And everything else in between is just in between. But this is what you need in order to have a concise mix that everybody grooves to and understands what's happening. Then, when you start your track, you can decide what kind of a vibe is it. If you see there's a lot of people already swaying, if say it's a daytime party or it's on a beach setting, I'll probably start with something percussive to create a sensual element to get the groove going. If it's nighttime, I'll probably start with a kick. And even if I'm somewhere where I have to start and the party didn't even start yet, I'm the first act in, I'll probably start with this. And get people just, and just like tone it down a little bit. But those are different approaches. But coming in from the high end, the low end is going to make a lot of impact when you enter that into the room or enter it into your performance or into your song. So song structure and arrangement is also a thing that determines how a mix is perceived. I'm saying again, song structure is also a very strong asset in the way your mix is perceived. If I'm coming out guns blazing, running out of the saloon shooting, everybody's like, oh, okay. But everybody gets used to the frequencies that they hear. So the big getaway and takeaway from this is you should always try to surprise the crowd with what is happening. Now, as you see, I'm using the Octatrack for the drums, which means that I'm limiting myself. If I don't do that, I will probably have 5 tables filled with equipment with drums up to wazoo, which is not what I need. So what I've done is, out of the 8 tracks that the Octatrack can handle, 1 is already forfeited as the master effect, on which there's a little bit of reverb, as I can see here. What is this? Dark reverb. And I can see that it's automated a little bit, as you can hear. From the minute I open this up, the crossfader, you see that it gets, I don't know if you can make it out on camera, but that means that there's something there, right? So, and the snare drum, obviously. Another thing, if you're using reverb on your final mix or on certain sounds, please keep in mind that if it's only a percussive element that plays like the snare drum, that snare drum is very much on a drum roll and with reverb going to start behaving like a hi-hat in terms of the frequency that is being spread out throughout the whole of your track. You hear it here, but listen to the reverb. It gets brighter and brighter, which means you're going to end up hurting people. So a good balance between what you have here, when it occasionally plays on the 2 and the 4 and the 2 and the 4, means that when it plays everywhere, all of a sudden it's in your face now. So keep that in mind, But then if you want to make a dramatic impact, it could work. This on my drums, right? I'm not going to play that hypnotic element as of yet. I will say that out of the 8 tracks, that I have on the audio side of the Octatrack, there are 8 MIDI tracks as well right here that I'm not using at the moment. You can use the Octatrack for MIDI, but I've got my RK008 for MIDI, or I'll play stuff live. This is a sequencer that records MIDI notes. So if I was to play something here, I can just record it in here. So I have that task away from a box that I would like to focus on drums. This box needs to focus on drums. Octatrack, drums, and bass. Drum and bass, and there's bass. So 6 tracks of drums, in this case 5 tracks of drums. These are all my drums. More drums you're not going to hear. Then there's 1 hypnotic element here. And then there's a bass line on 7. That sounds a bit sidechained because I sidechained it ahead of time. So this sounds like... Makes sense, right? Now, another thing to note if you want to start layering stuff, because now it gets, you know, I've got all my drums going. This is not the problem. The problem starts when you want to add this and this. Now luckily the 303 has 3 octaves. This is the low one. You can even hear the waveform break up a little bit, but it starts to growl, which I like. I can use this if I want to make a bass drop like this, but mostly I'm using it here. This is an octave up, 12 notes up, right? I can play around with the resonance and the cutoff frequency, which is what a lot of people do. But I'm trying to make sure that out of the notes that I'm hearing right here, this is also a mixing trick. Out of the notes that I'm hearing right here, I'm trying to emphasize certain elements of it, so that if I play with another bass line, you'll hear only parts of the sound. I'm not aiming to make you hear everything all the time. This is a misconception that people make when they're mixing. They're standing in the desert, they want to polish all their marbles and place them so that everyone can see them. Well, a good mix is actually imperfection. It's crossover points, where if I'm going to make sure that now you hear it, it's easy to hear. With the bass line, you can clearly hear low-end frequency content, and the 303's got high-end frequency content. Now I'm going to go to a crossover point where they meet. Not everything, I'm not trying to mask them like this, but it needs to just like go in like this. So I'm taking off the overdrive, just for an example. And you'll hear that if I mask it too much, the 303's will be gone. It's playing, still here, as you can hear. And the low note has got some really low-end content. But this is masked too much, so it's hiding behind this frequency, so we need to take it out there. The easiest way to do it is octave it up, but I need a little bit of cadence in my bottom end. I need cadence in my bottom end. Now I need in the bottom of the frequency range, I need a little bit of movement. So I can play around with that. Get to know the filters. If you're using a variable frequency driven synthesizer like the TB03 or a 303 or a TD3 or whatever, try to find the sweet spot of the filter. Now that we know that we need to watch out that those two are not going to fight with each other, and this is just catalyzing the beat. Another thing to do is to introduce stuff, because then people have a mind map of where the sound is coming from the minute I'm introducing this. And I'm going in, I'm taking out a little bit of low end, it's also mapped. As you can see, if I'm pressing scene B here, taking a side step here, everything that starts to become green is automated to the scene B. You can see that happen. So now I'm only on track 1 and on this, right? So if I'm going here, if I'm pressing it, you see that the filter goes up, which means there's a kick. But keeping this pressed and doing this, I'm going to encode that whenever I open this crossfader, this machine is going to take out low end. So strong asset right there. Okay, now that that works and that happens, I will introduce that bass line as I said. So I will open it up and say like, put a little bit of delay on there, which is an advantage I have with a TB03, right? Take out low end. So within the frequency spectrum, different things are shifting, right? The kick just went up, and now we're going to add that bass line in and the kick in. Nice. I'm going to add some more drums in. 2, 3, and nice. So now you hear that I've got like a collage of sounds where I think, okay, this is very easy to follow, right? But I'm going to leave the TB03. Now let me set the TB03. Let's do that so that you can follow along. TB03. I'm going to set it in a way that you'll always hear it. Yeah. So I'm going to overdrive it a little bit, so it gets a little bit more growly, because this track is pretty energetic once you hear it out live. I don't want to go squelchy, that's that, but I want to make sure that you'll hear it, right? Resonance and the cutoff, the more I use it, the less low end I'm going to keep. Same goes for the overdrive. There's more low end here than here. So now that I've got that, okay, is that bass line? So I will always hear it. I'll turn it down here, but I'm not going to tamper with it for now, because you'll see how this is going to be a strong acid that constantly goes. So now I've got this in the room, I can add some more music just by nice. Long release, sound that I just created. Very lush, very hypnotic. Cool. Now I've got on my 1010 black box 4 different samples, and there's a trick involved. Those samples need to fill in the holes of the frequencies that I left open for it. So, and this is track 4 on bank 4, which means that track 1, 2, 3, and 4, track 1, 2, 3, and 4. So this whole line here, and I'm pointing to this MIDI fighter as this is connected to the 1010 black box. So now all of a sudden you've got this one sample. You can hear that it leans, it lays, it just you know, leans into this Octatrack business. That's nice. This is where problems arise. This is probably something that's going to take a while for you to get your head around, because it's not the easiest to just like get different boxes to sound like that. But you know, keep at it. I think that I'm hearing the TVO3 a little bit too prominently at the moment. So, the cutoff frequency is my friend. Whatever I introduce within my track needs to be there, and it needs to make an impact. It doesn't need to be loud, but it needs to be adamant that something has started. Otherwise, it doesn't work. Meanwhile, everything that I set in the mix is still the mix, right? Cool. This is one fast arpeggio. So listen to this in solo. And a bit of a bass line that goes up here. Let's make a shorter note and open the filter up. I'll play along. And that bass line goes up. So it's 3 notes, right? And then instead of the high note is this. So this is what it's playing. So I've got 2 notes already. Instead of. That's nice. So this does a thing there. So all my drums in, bam, and all the bass line, like so. Still hit a 3 or 3. Do-do, do-do, do-do. Try and follow along. Da-da, 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 forward. So now you got something that is giving you a direction on where to go. Da-da, da-da. Okay, let's play another arp to just like complicate stuff more. This is the top one. And what I'm hearing now is because notes are now starting to, well, connect. As you can hear, this is the 303, and within that lower arpeggio it was this note. So now you hear psychoacoustics at work for you. Amazing. Okay, I've got some more of a vocal going, but I'm going to make a breakdown, and that's where I've got this element here. The acid box is connected to another output of the 1010 black box. Because I've only played 2 samples, I've got 4 slots, which means there's more that I can do. This bass line is staying on the same root note. But I'm thinking, when I'm thinking of a chord scheme, I would like to do it classically, meaning 4 chords. So I'll go from here to here. Up to here, to here. That's what I'm going to do with my bass line, knowing that already. Everything can still play in the same direction, but that's what I'm going to do in a while. I've got 2 patterns, one with this bass line, one with another bass line that is going to play. But let's first focus on a vocal here. Yes, all the speaker hoggers watching this video know exactly at what particular point we are in time when this happens. Okay, snare roll. I'm going to engage everything, which means holding the function button and then engaging. You see little pluses go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, go. And what was the mistake that I made? It's open. I was like 1, 2, 3, 4, and the beat is going in, but the beat didn't go in. But we'll do it now. For you. 1, 2, 3, go. And I'm trying to do 2 things at the same time. Yeah, so I'm closing down the crossfader so the kick comes in, and this. Now I'm going to turn off the. Normally this goes on for a while. Then I'll play. So this is my performance aspect. Everything is in balance. I think my mix is in balance. Taking out the vocal, taking out the kick, right? Which is something that I do something here. Turn this down first. Now, to transition, something needs to move, otherwise it's too static, right? I'm going to engage my rave sound. This is the big riff. That's already playing now. I know it because I can see it running, but it's coming out of an extra output that's going through the acid box 3 here. And now I'm going to switch to a different pattern that plays the same as this bass line. You get? That's the bass line. Like I told you. Up. That's what I told you, right? Okay, so that's what the bass line is playing. I'm going to take out the arps because I'm going to introduce this here. All the time the 303 keeps doing the same thing. Now if I'm having conflicts because this bass line is not too clear, then I'm going to detune or tune the 303 to another pitch, 1 octave up. And create a little bit more of an anticipation. Usually I'll take more drums out, but for now we're running, right? Opening this up. Woo! Kick in. So I don't have to hold it. Cool. Top arp in. Nice one. Cool. I'm going to turn this down and go back to my first pattern. Bottom arp. Turn off the top arp. But mixing is much, what do I stick in your face? And what do I stick in your face prominently so that is what you are focusing on. That's pretty much how I'm trying to do it. So let's do the reverse. Let's take stuff out so you hear how the backbone of the track is still going to be the same as we all started. I didn't change anything. So if the jigsaw puzzle works, then that's See, it's still here. Okay, taking out the arp, taking out the atmosphere, like so. Bass line, you'll hear it. 303, you'll hear it. Pitched up high, yeah. This low, then you don't hear it. Now you hear it. So every moment in the track has got their own sort of like frequency range where I think that I'm active, and then I need something in front of my face that I can play so that I'm not just only playing around with when is something going to play, how do the filters open. I think live means live, so something needs to be live as well. I'm going to take out the 303. There you go. Doo-doo, doo-doo, doo-doo. Okay, take out this bass line. Take out the kick and the open head. Take out the snare. And call it quits. And that's how you do it. Obviously, let me know in the comment section on how you do that. I'm very keen to know your workflow. You want to get closer to this whole situation, or you want to talk about this stuff with like-minded people, let me suggest patreon.com/analogkitchen, where the whole congregation congregates, where we talk shop, where we talk about this kind of stuff. So that's all very cool. Okay, are we going to Super Booth? Yes, we are there. We are there with a big bossy. So if you're at Super Booth, just bump into me, make sure to say hi. And yeah, it's going to be an absolute amazing ride. Now, this is the way I work my stuff. Obviously, there's so many different roads that lead to Rome, and we all know that, but this is my way of addressing it. This is how I do it. Let me know if you've got a different approach to doing it. And thank you. If you're new here, thank you for watching. If you made it this far into the video, you, sir or ma'am, you're an absolute superstar. Thank you for watching. I'll catch you next week on another video. I'm Analog Kitchen, and I'm out. Peace.